You're watching Soleful Discussions.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. How did we just meet right now?
On the street.
On the street.
On the street of Long Beach.
Absolutely. What did I approach you about? What are we doing today?
We're talking about reflexology, feet, and mind-body awareness.
Very close. Mental health.
Mental health.
Mental
Okay,
health.
I would say that they're pretty similar. They're
They
very
are.
intertwined.
They are.
Okay.
So, in terms of feet, when you hear that, what do you think about? First thing goes to your mind.
Feet.
Yeah. What do you think about?
I think about mobility. I think about independence, but I also think about like a really underappreciated part of the body.
Absolutely.
We all have them.
It's our foundation, man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's how we connect. It's how we move. Many of us that have feet that work, you know.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna ask you some questions today about your thoughts about feet. It'll encompass like different questions.
Okay.
Feel free to answer however you like in those moments. What about mental health? When you hear that, what goes to your mind? What do you think about?
I think about something that a lot of us want and are striving for, but that the world we live in makes really challenging to accomplish. I also think about like surface level immediate reaction I think mental health has become a really popular topic due to the state of our mental health. So I feel like it's becoming more of an open conversation that I think it's great to see the evolution of people talking about and having more fluency.
Yeah.
I think about my own mental health. I think about the journey. I think about the process.
Yeah.
And
you were kind of mentioning as we like prepared to start this interview about like kind of some of the things that you're doing in terms of like work right now, like related to that, right? You want to be able to like control more of the aspect of what you're doing and like feel better about it, right? And I feel like just doing the same thing over and over again, it's not going anywhere.
Totally.
I love that.
And also like working for other people or working for a corporation, which like truthfully doesn't share the same goals as me. Their number one goal is profit and expansion, right? And I don't think that mental health has a place
with
there.
That. Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. So today we're going to talk a little bit about social media, the impacts it can have on depression, anxiety. I'd love to get your thoughts about how you feel about that once we get there, okay?
Great.
And then lastly, reflexology. You ever heard of that before? Does it sound familiar?
So as a yoga instructor and former dancer, I have had reflexology in and out of my life. I'm like still very novice, but I think it's like something I've worked to embody, and I'm excited to hear what you have to ask me about.
Absolutely. Well, I'm actually gonna give some information. You can tell me what your experiences have been like in terms of that. Have you had different experiences or whatever it is? And we'll go from there, okay?
Awesome.
All right, let's start with the first question. What are your thoughts about how the world is starting to become more like aware of mental health and like what we're starting to do about it? How do you feel about that?
I think it's a mixed bag. Everything in this world is nuanced, so I try to approach it in a nuanced way. I think in my shorter life, I've seen a real big change in the presence of mental health in conversations.
Okay.
Like I said, more fluency around it. I think that we're leaning into a socialization of mental health where we're open to talking about it. Generations for long times are communities that like don't have the space to talk about it. I think are starting to like lean into it more. And I think that everyone wants to understand their mental health now that it's like so prominent in our discussions. I think that the nuance to it though that I wonder if it's good for us is that in an age of social media and like overconsumption and short attention spans and like short-term goal setting and like the sort of this like dependency on like immediacy, I feel like we're like becoming obsessed with the idea of fixing our mental health and doing it in the fast way. Like I feel as someone who's on social media a lot and trying to be on it less and having conversations with people, like there's no way that you can infographic your way into becoming like a mental health expert.
It
and then
takes
I
time,
think people become fixated on it. So now they're like, here's one other thing about myself that I don't like. I need to work on. I need to become an expert at. And now I'm obsessing over it. And I'm just consuming things at lightning speed. And now my mental health is actually like more like it's escalating your emotional state of being, which is when it's hard to like process and embody and sit with and integrate what you're learning.
Absolutely.
So now it's just like another ball I'm juggling in the air. It's like, oh, how's my mental health? I got to learn about my mental health.
Yes.
So I think in many ways we're approaching it with a good intention, but like the impact of it, I think it I've seen in myself and friends and other people in my community is it starts to become another thing that we feel like we're not good enough at.
Yeah, still surface level. We haven't like really gotten depth with it yet.
Yeah.
I definitely think like there's been a huge change though, because like 15, 20 years ago, like we really didn't talk about, and I think it has a lot to do with technology, kind of like to your point, right? Everything that we receive information wise like can happen at like the press of a button.
Totally.
Whereas in the past it was like it took time for you to get stuff like, you know, finding out that something's going on, and it's like now you can just scroll through something and be like, wow, this is happening right now.
Yeah,
and
you can learn about stuff like in infographics on TikTok in like 30-second clips. Whereas before it's like you had to go see a shrink, and that was like super I don't want to say frowned upon. In some people it was, but it's really heavily connotated with like you are unwell, you are
Something's
only
wrong with
wealthy,
you,
or you're just wealthy and you want to talk to somebody about your problems, right?
Very much so.
And my mom, for a long time was undiagnosed bipolar 2. So growing up with a parent that's like pretty crippled by a mental health condition, and another parent who had really conservative views or exposure, really. I don't think it was like their own opinion,
Just
but
didn't know.
lack of exposure, right? I sort of grew up in the middle of a household that was wrestling with mental health and conversations around it. And so thinking back to my childhood where it was like trying to hide it to now it's like everyone is openly talking about going to therapy and like what they're learning. It's really cool to see that arc.
Yeah. Night and day.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. In terms of social media, right? First of all, what are your thoughts about it? And then secondly, how do you use it yourself?
Just like broadly?
Yeah, broadly.
I think social media started off as a really cool idea. Not the Mark Zuckerberg like rating women thing, but like the idea of like using technology as a platform to connect and learn and just like disappear into this cool world. I think that's really amazing, and it's one of the really special creations that humans are yet again producing and relating through. But I think with capitalism at the roots of everything, it's turning into another money-making engine. It's turning into another way to advertise and promote, and a lot of times we're driving people toward a product or something that we're selling by making them insecure about themselves or making them feel like they're lacking something. And so I feel like I leave social media these days drained more than I leave it feeling inspired and connected to people. So I've been trying to take like a month off or a couple months off, or like unfollow a bunch of accounts that I know feel draining to me. Because at the end of the day, like I got social media to stay connected with friends who live internationally or around the country, or
that you don't see every day.
Or be inspired. Like I think social media at its core is almost like about storytelling. It's like taking your main character and like putting it out into the world, and people find and are attracted to different pockets of the world and human experience, right? So it's really cool. Makes me think of Tumblr. I loved Tumblr because back in the day,
Tumblr was cool.
For those who remember Tumblr, there was this factor of anonymity where like no one knew who you were. You don't follow your friends. You go into the internet to be inspired and to disappear into like this other world that you can sort of poke around and prod in. And with the social media element, like when I use it, I think a lot about like, what do people think? How do people perceive me? How do I perceive myself through my assumed perception of others? Because I never know, right? But I'm trying to mind read and be like, what do people think if I post this thing or I don't post about this thing? I used to be really overactively posting and sharing a lot of political content, and then with the pandemic and like racial revolution and social revolution, I was like compulsively sharing, and then I was like, we're all just passing around the same infographics. This is like checking a box of feeling like I'm active without actually making any deep impact in a community. Why am I doing this? And then I was like, well, what will people in my community think if I stop talking about these things? That it was just surface level and I don't care and I'm moving on. And I got like in this really crazy, like deep, like trench of like,
Yeah, you dove deep, man.
that's how I am. But like, yeah, so I don't know. I don't share a lot of stuff anymore except the things that feel like little sound bites and clips of my life as I'm living it these days.
That
And
makes sense.
because I know the person that I am, and I know the interest and work and impact I have in my community and where I want to learn, where I want to grow. And I just don't want it to be like a performance for others so that I can feel good about myself.
Get about yourself.
Tying it back to the mental health thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
I have a timer on my social media apps that only allow me an hour a day, and now I'm compulsively hitting 15 more minutes, 15 more minutes, 15 more minutes, and I'm like, whoa, why am I...
Like almost like the snooze. Right.
Literally, it's like snoozing on reality.
Yeah, for real, man.
That's crazy.
That's very interesting, man. And I'm glad that, well, at least you know it, so now you can make steps to like actually do something about it.
And what I need to do is move out of a place of my mental health being like, you're a piece of shit because you can't get off these apps.
Yeah.
Go do the thing, right?
Yeah, go do the thing that you're
So
looking at. Yeah.
I'm at this point now where I'm like, okay, I think I'm self-soothing. I think I feel stressed or I need to decompress or relax from what's going on out here. So I turn to my phone. That's what's happening. I'm not just a piece of trash. I'm like self-soothing, but unconsciously I need to like probably divert from this. Yeah. So it's just like any relationship with people or a partner. Like my relationship with social media is complicated.
Interesting. Let's say somebody came to you, right? And they said they're giving you the power to change something about social media, right? Do you feel like there's anything that should change, or do you feel like the change needs to happen more within the users, people who are using the actual apps themselves?
Ooh, can I give you a different idea?
Dude,
like a blend of the two
I love it.
answers?
Let's hear it.
I think that at this point, social media is so ingrained in our culture that it's become an extension of us. So I don't think that we can fully extract the two.
Yeah.
Social media is a product of people. And in many ways, like we start to turn into what we consume on social media, I think in some ways.
Exactly.
So if there's anything I could change, it's a big one. I feel like I would try and like take the money out of it.
Okay.
I don't know. I have to sit with this question. I'm trying to like give you like quick off the top of my head answers, but I'm gonna sit with this after our conversation probably and think.
No worries, and we can always come back to it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just want people to go to a place where they feel good and want to share things, not where they're like, what am I missing? Obligated to have to do it, or... Yeah, well, it's like, what am I missing if I'm not on it and I don't see what people are up to? Or like a lot of my friends are creatives and artists and entrepreneurs, and I myself am just recently quitting a job to try and put more energy and effort into my own creations. And I feel like I've resisted doing a business page because I don't want to now have to be glued to social media as the way to expose myself to people who want to find me. But I know that at the same time, it's a function of the material world, so I have to do it.
So it's like a double-edged sword. You're like, what do I do?
It is. And so, and I think about a lot of creatives who are trying to like perform for an algorithm instead of like creating art. Yeah. Right? Because you disappear if you don't post a certain amount of times and play to the algorithm's rules. Very
much so.
Which is like deep, and you could project that same idea onto just the world around us. Like art takes time, creations take time, like true presence in the world takes time. It doesn't happen every 2 days in 60-second condensed bite-sized versions.
I love that about like when I look at different musical artists. So like a lot of like Kendrick's like one of my favorite artists, and sometimes he'll go away for like 2 or 3 years and you don't like hear anything from him, and then he pops back up with an album and you're like, oh, that's why. Like he's like really delving deep into like these different things, and you see like the product of his creativity, like what he's actually like digging into and what he wants other people to see from it. So I definitely get what you're saying, like with that, like you could do it the way that you want to do it. Like, I'm just gonna put this stuff out here, but like how much of that is actually you and what you want to share, or how much of is it that you feel like you have to do to like have to do this to meet this quota.
Current.
You have to stay current, to stay relevant, like different.
We're
things
putting
like that.
so much value in the performance of everything, and social media just amplifies that. It's a space where it amplifies that. And tying that again back to mental health, it's like, well, fuck, if I don't matter until someone else tells me I matter, then like how healthy am I?
It's like,
how confident am I? How much power of my own am I giving away to other people? And like, losing the control of what I have control over, right?
Absolutely.
It's crazy. And
It
like,
really is.
I'm saying this because I feel like I'm learning and I'm becoming more and more aware of it and fluent of it, but it's
Yeah.
not like I have this figured out. Like I mean, just another person who is like trying to like make sense of all of this.
Well, we're ever evolving anyway, right? So it's like, once we do figure one thing out, something else happens, and you got to try to like learn how to roll with that too. So
totally. And like the biggest thing is integrating, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
we can learn so much, but like how are we integrating it into actual change
very much so.
or like more awareness?
Yeah.
I hate that word awareness, but I feel like it's overused. I want you to do something with your awareness, but that's where I'm at.
Okay. Let me ask you this: in terms of anxiety, is there anything that brings you anxiety? You don't have to go too in depth, maybe more surface level.
Yeah.
Is there anything that does that for you? And then when you feel anxiety happening, what do you do to like counteract those emotions, those feelings?
I definitely find that my mind, whether I'm anxious or not, my mind starts spinning really fast when I'm on social media for a while.
Interesting.
I'm like losing the like sensations of being in my body, and it's just like everything is up here, it's going really fast, it's like this thing, scroll, this thing,
Yeah.
and then it's like it feels like I stop breathing as deeply. I'm focusing these days a lot, just due to like my profession and interests, on how do I feel in my body.
Nice.
When I'm on social media, I am not feeling in my body. I'm not even in my body.
Interesting.
I'm like fully in my mind. I'm fully
It's
in
like
the
being
app.
in the Matrix, basically.
Totally. Yeah. And so if I'm on it for a while, I do start to feel anxious, but I also sometimes when I'm anxious turn to my phone to escape whatever out here is making me anxious.
Yeah.
Right? If we're in a crowd of people and we see someone we don't want to talk to, a lot of times what we do is we pull out our phone. Right? But then if you're in your phone for a while, you start to feel anxious, and then you're like, shit, I need to get off my phone.
Yeah, so it's like, what do you do?
What do you do? So when I'm starting to feel that way, I try to put my phone down, try to drink some water, just like doing small things that introduce sensation again, right? So drinking water is always great. We're always dehydrated. I'm always dehydrated. Feeling the water go down through my body, that makes me feel my chest area. So then I'm like, oh, how are my breaths? Starting to take deeper breaths, getting up and moving my body, just like trying to re-engage where my energy is from up here to like back in my body. Absolutely. Because I think our natural state in our body is to feel present and relaxed, like our parasympathetic nervous system. But then when we're up here, we're losing it. We're like disconnecting.
Let me ask you this, because you mentioned breathing, right? So for me, like my number to count to is 5. Like I feel comfortable with that. You have a number that's like comfortable for you, or?
So if you want to relax, it's better to have shorter inhales, longer exhales. Yeah. So I'll usually start with like 4, maybe hold for 4, exhale for 6. And then I just try, like, after doing that 4 or 5 times, to walk the number up one by one.
I like that.
So that I'm like, and you're tricking your brain once again by focusing on your breath to tune everything else out, which helps relax you. So I'll usually do inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 6. Or inhale 4, hold 6, exhale 8. Okay. It really depends. I had COVID a couple months ago, so my lungs aren't working as well, so I can't hold my breath that long. But
you have to build it back up.
Putting the effort in immediately relaxes me.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
So let's get into these questions now. I'll be intrigued to see what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts about your feet? How do you feel about your feet?
My feet? Honestly, I think that I compare my feet to other people's feet, and I get self-conscious about my feet.
Well, okay.
Like, so, my feet work. They do great work.
They do everything they're supposed to do.
They do everything they're supposed to do.
But aesthetically,
when I'm out there doing yoga and I'm like, oh shit, like my feet are dusty.
You're looking around like, she just got a new pedicure.
I've got dirt under my nails. I can see. I haven't had a pedicure in months. And then I'm like, do other people see my feet?
Interesting.
And then I think, if we're thinking about the internet, everyone and like their feet pics, and there's this comparative quality. So honestly, like working on it, human in progress. But when I think about my feet and I look at my feet, sometimes I'm not like, ooh, I got nice feet.
You're self-conscious.
These are great feet. I'm like, okay.
So you're dissecting. You're like,
I'm analyzing my feet.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have to like reprogram my thoughts and be like, hey, thanks, feet.
Yeah, there you go. Let me ask you this. Have you ever received compliments before your feet? Anybody ever told you, hey, you have nice feet? Did that ever happen for you before?
Yeah, it has, but it was a while ago, and I think I definitely had a pedicure.
Okay.
Or it's like, you know, my boyfriend who likes my feet.
In that moment, getting a compliment about that, how does it make you feel?
Good.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Because it's like, it's something that adds value, right? I think from the aspect of like something that maybe you don't see because you just said like self-conscious about it. I look at it this way. To hear somebody say that they're nice might make you feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah, especially like, not that my feet are like the center of my insecurities, but I think when someone notices something that we feel insecure about and they compliment it, it's like, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah. It's like, it could be worse. I've seen worse.
Totally. I've seen worse than my feet. Yeah. I promise you. I teach yoga. I see all types of feet. And I used to do dance. So, like, girls are like, I mean, everybody.
You mess your feet up with that, right?
Yeah, you really fuck them up.
Yeah.
So, like, I've been there. I've seen all types. And honestly, I have to be appreciative that mine do as much as they do.
Not as bad. I'm in the middle tier somewhere. Like, there it is.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. In terms of compliments you receive, right? And just in compliments in general, not just physical, but just compliments in general. Is there a certain compliment that when you get that compliment, you're like, man, that really made my day. Made me feel good about that.
About my feet?
No.
Just everything?
Not physical,
anything?
just anything, any compliment.
I like when people compliment things that I put a lot of effort and energy into. On certain days, that might be my appearance, but I think I feel best when someone's like, I love how you thought about this thing, or I love this work that you're doing. I love, you know, something I really care about is making sure people are like feeling good and happy and included. Like if people notice things that I'm putting effort into, that's more like a personality or like
something that's more in depth, not something that's
not that's just like surface level or image based, right? Because I don't want to just be valued based on how I look today or don't tomorrow. I want to be valued on something that's more consistent, which is like my character and like the depth of caring or interest that I have in something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In terms of pedicures, how often do you get pedicures? You said it's been a couple months.
I'm a regular. I'll either do it like every month for like 6 months a year and then stop for a few years, or I'll get one like every couple of months here or there.
Okay.
I've always been self-conscious. I grew up in a very rural area of upstate New York, barefoot all the time.
Interesting.
So I didn't have my first pedicure until I was 16 at my stepmom's place in Italy, where they have like on-call home visit care.
Oh, that's
it's really
so
common.
dope.
Yeah, so more common than like a nail salon.
Yeah.
People come to your house and make house calls, and you're just a regular client.
That's
so
cool.
One of their friends, Anna, who was coming over for a while, comes and looks at my feet, and I'm just watching her shred off all the dead skin, and I don't speak Italian, and I'm like so embarrassed.
You're like, oh my God.
Because like no one else has that much, and I'm like, oh my God, my feet are so beat up. Like what the hell? And so that was a really funny first experience. I definitely.
But I would imagine you live like an active lifestyle, right? So
I
like
do.
You're constantly on the go, I would imagine.
I am. So like I build up calluses when I was dancing, calluses.
Those are good for dancing, right?
Exactly. So I haven't gotten a ton of pedicures, and every time I go, I feel uncomfortable, like they're judging my feet, or like I don't shave my legs, so I have hairier legs, and they're like rubbing your calf, and I'm always just like, do they think I'm gross?
You're like, uh-oh.
So I have to like distract myself and be like, it's fine. Everyone has feet.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, it's nothing to be crazy about. Let me ask you this, in terms of pedicures, have you ever heard of a medical pedicure before?
No.
All right, so that's like when you go see a podiatrist, specialist of the foot. They take a look at your feet to like make sure your nails are growing correctly.
Oh, okay. My friend does this.
Oh, really?
My boyfriend is really gross. Like one of his toes that like got real messed up in an accident has like the 2 side ingrowns. So she has to help cut them back, and she actually just did that recently a couple weeks ago while we were on vacation together.
Interesting. So she's a podiatrist.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'd love to get some information from her.
Yeah.
But so it's basically so for you go there, they'll take a look at your nose, make sure they're growing correctly. They check your toe alignment to make sure it's good. They check your feet for like dead skin, fungus.
Hammer toes. I learned about hammer toes.
Oh, you know about hammer toes?
I have
hammer toes. Yeah. So, but they give you more insight into your feet, like what's going on there, right? It's
functionality more than aesthetic.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like going to like a dentist when they tell you about your teeth, like what you need to do. Same thing for your feet. Like this is what podiatrists do.
Yep.
What are your thoughts? I mean, have you gone to your friend yet to have her do anything?
I haven't. I feel like I've been lucky that my body tends to work well enough that until
Okay.
there's like an emergency, I don't
okay.
like seek preventative care.
I see.
That's
I see.
something I'm working on.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like 28, so I'm finally running out of like my immortality complex, where like nothing's ever a problem.
But I mean, you got the end. You got your friend. She's already doing it. You
I
can just set it up
know.
like, hey, I just need
I know. I
some
need to hit her
insight real
up.
quick.
It's funny. She's actually from Long Beach but lives in Boston, and I moved from Boston here to Long Beach.
Oh, that's so crazy.
It's like I see her when I'm visiting.
Yeah,
I'd be
interesting.
super interested.
Yeah.
I mean, I already know that I have a stress fracture that's healed improperly, so 2 of my toes like can't spread and like grip as well.
Interesting.
But that's more from like self-study and asking lots of questions.
Yeah.
I always love learning about my body and learning
Yeah.
about things. So
Absolutely, that's dope. How many wear open toe shoes, sandals, flip flops, things like that?
almost always open toe.
Always. I mean,
These
Long
days,
Beach.
yeah. Like I moved to Long Beach and I was like, living in Boston and I'm up from basically near the Canadian border in
Yeah.
New York State. Like we're in closed-toed shoes almost year-round,
That's what I
except
hear.
when I'm barefoot, and I
Yeah.
can't be barefoot in a city, which bums me out, but it is what it is. So like these little rubber things
Yeah,
are what
yeah.
I'm wearing a lot of the time. Sandals.
Okay.
Occasionally I'll wear heels and boots and things. Sometimes sneakers, but
Interesting.
I like my feet to breathe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very lovely.
And then your muscles, don't they get a lot stronger when
Your
they're not relying on the
muscles,
stabilization
yes.
of your shoes?
Yeah.
They're like actually working and functioning right?
That's because that's the way it was meant to be. Like, you know,
Yeah.
as you like make more of those movements, your feet and everything learn to like be able to grasp certain things. So like rock climbers, right? They wear certain types of shoes so that they can like better grip onto the rocks. If without those shoes, wearing shoes like this wouldn't work.
Way
They wouldn't be able to
different.
do it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I actually have a buddy who's like really into this. He's also like kind of a not like survivalist, but he's very much like wants to be as close to nature
Oh,
and
okay.
like self-reliant as possible.
Interesting.
And, there was an era where we were all teasing him. He went like 3 years without wearing shoes because he was like, I want to know what my feet do when they're not stuck in shoes every day.
Interesting.
And then he got those like toe shoes so that there was something,
Oh, yeah.
but that he could still feel and grip the ground.
Yep.
And that was like his winter shoe. And we were all like, dude, you gotta wear boots in the winter, dude. Come on.
Bro, you gotta step your game up,
Yeah,
bro.
but at the end of it, he was like, look how strong my feet are.
That's
and like his toe,
interesting.
he can like, like the dexterity of his
Yeah.
toes was like
It's a
really
lot
cool.
more.
Where he could be like, I can move this one toe at a time. And we're all like, huh?
It's like nobody else can do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's interesting.
Yeah. Not for everyone.
No, not for everyone. How often do you like go barefoot, no shoes? Well, I mean, you said you get it all
Honestly,
the time.
as often as I can.
As often as you can.
But I live here in Long Beach,
Yeah.
so it's not really.
It's not as clean. Yeah.
It's not as clean, and I'm learning about how much our feet absorb.
Yeah, from
They
like, chemicals
absorb
and stuff.
so much
Yes.
in a way where it's like actually really beneficial if you're on dirt or grass to like stimulate and absorb all of like the good like nutrients and minerals that's in that environment. But if you're in an environment that doesn't have healthy soil, healthy grass,
Yeah, you're just doing
or
it by
glass or like whatever sketchy stuff is left
Yeah.
around, like we're also absorbing that. So I'm trying to be more conscious of when and where I go
when
barefoot.
you do it. Absolutely.
But as much as possible. If I'm at home, I'm always barefoot. I don't wear slippers or anything.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So now, can we see what your feet look like?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, cool. Let me get you to put your feet up here. All right,
Okay.
cool. Let's see them in the sandals.
These
All right.
are my feet in the sandals.
What size do you wear?
I'm like a 7.5, 8.
So, and you got them natural right now? 'Cause
Yeah.
You said you haven't had a pedicure in a couple months.
No, I was actually just on vacation on a farm for 2 weeks.
Interesting.
I
Yeah,
was
so it's better to be like
yeah,
this.
Exactly.
Absolutely. All right, let me have you take your feet out the sandals.
Okay.
All right. And then let's see. I think you have the bigger toe is bigger.
Yep.
Egyptian toe alignment that you have. Yeah, 'cause
Egyptian toe.
yeah, so it means like your toes go from like bigger and they go down like in a descending order.
Okay.
As opposed to like some people have the second toe.
It's really
that's bigger.
long.
Yeah, and
They
that's
remind me like lizard feet.
yeah, those
Lizard-
are Grecian toes.
Grecian,
Yeah,
okay.
so it's like a Greek toe. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's
But you
weird because I
Egyptian.
have Greek like heritage.
Lineage?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, it's an Egyptian toe, right?
Okay.
Absolutely. All right, let me get you to extend your feet out, put your feet straight like this. All right. Cool. So how are you feeling? Like we met a few minutes ago, we've been talking for a little bit. Looking at your feet now, how you feel?
I feel like this isn't a ruse to just get feet pics on the internet.
No. I'm gonna share my YouTube channel and everything with you once we're done.
I feel good. You're making me take time to like look at and appreciate my feet.
Okay.
And I was actually just thinking while doing yoga an hour ago that maybe I should get a pedicure and paint my toes soon.
Okay.
So
All
now
right.
I'm like having a moment where like, do I really need to do that?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like it when it's natural. Like it's just,
Yeah.
you know, looks like it's fresh. I mean, nothing wrong there, anything like that. Let me give you a little bit of the mental health of why like I got started on my channel, and then leave your feet. We're gonna go through a couple more exercises. Okay. So during quarantine, I was watching another guy's channel, and he was talking about exposure therapy. You familiar with that?
Yeah.
All right. So like, it's for people like in certain situations you may feel uncomfortable, like have a fear of like getting on roller coasters, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go to theme parks, but all you do is walk around. You never get on the roller coasters. You want to,
Yeah.
but you're just like, I'm so afraid, right? So therapists will like tell you, go out and do that, right? They want you to do it over and over again, right? With the mindset being like, the more that you do that, the more comfortable you'll become with it, right? You never fully like get over it. You won't get to the point where you're just like, I don't feel anything, but you get to the point where you're like, okay, like I know it's gonna happen here. Like, you know, I might feel a little bit at first, but nothing bad's gonna happen, right?
You learn how to manage your body's
Exactly,
response. Yeah.
exactly. So when I heard about that, I was like, man, throughout my life, I've been somebody who overthinks everything. Like, you throw something my way and I'm like, I don't know if I should do this, if I should do that. And I wanted to get better at like just making snap decisions. And I was like, oh, okay, like it's a very good concept. So I wanted to take that concept, tie it together with the subject of feet.
Okay.
A lot of people tend to be uncomfortable like with feet, right? They're like, it's negative, they got these connotations attached
That's
to
a
it.
good point. I don't think I was self-conscious of my feet until I was around people that were like, ew, feet are so gross, get those feet away from me. And then I'm like, okay, so we're grossed out by feet now?
Yeah, so
like,
it's like you
it was
start
a
to
learned
develop that,
behavior.
right?
Yeah.
And so you hear that a lot. You hear like the negative connotations people have, like the way that they feel about it, and you're like, well, why is that the case, right? We all have them. What's the problem? So the whole point of my channel is to go out and interview women, right? I'm a guy, so I'm, you know, interested in women. So I go out and talk to women, and I get them to talk about how they feel about their feet. Like, what are their like experiences with it? How do they tend to feel? Can they be comfortable? Like, as we're going through the interview, I'm asking you all these questions, and then when we get to this point, can you practice some of that exposure therapy and just like, I'm just gonna live in the moment, or do you start to overthink everything and be like, well, I don't know about this and I don't know about that?
Yeah, it's a great question.
So the whole point of my channel is trying to normalize the conversation that people have about that, so that it's not something like you said, people are like, well, it's disgusting, and then it's like, now you feel like you have to join the crowd. So through my interactions, like we go out and do this, and then we get different reactions to like how it is, and basically post those reactions. What are your thoughts about that, like trying to normalize something that other people might find to be weird or
I think it's important work. I think that me years ago would have been like, I don't think I want to do an interview. Or I'd be like, okay, how does this tie back to feet the whole time we're talking? Now I'm kind of, like we were talking about earlier, we give away our power to the idea of how others perceive us. That's a big thing I'm working on right now. So I'm kind of like, this guy is nice. I don't care what he thinks about my feet or what these people who might see this think about my feet. It's actually a good exercise for me right now that I'm paying more attention to, which is that like, wow, I can talk about my feet with a stranger and I actually feel good about my feet.
There you go. And so that's what I try to do, because a lot of women do feel like self-conscious. They have like these negative feelings about their feet. They've been told.
They're learned.
Yeah, but they've been told by somebody like, oh, you have ugly feet, or your feet are big, or whatever it may be. So they have these negative things, but like through my interaction, hopefully they can be more comfortable and like just learn to like.
I think so. It's a great idea. Can I share a funny story?
Sure, go ahead.
So I feel like as women, it's how our feet look, what size they are. And you probably talked to so many people. I don't know if this is a theme that comes up, but like, oh, my feet are too big. Like, I don't think anyone's ever like, my feet are too small.
That's a big
one. Like, I got big feet. And when I was growing up, I developed and grew taller before most people. Like my best friend to this day still was the only person we stood and could see each other over the heads of all the other kids. And we're like, cool, we're friends. So my feet were always bigger earlier than most of the people around me. So I could never borrow their shoes. I started to feel like they were big. And I told my dad one day, I'm just like, Dad, my feet are real big. And he was like, no, they're not. They're perfect. And I was like, why are they perfect? And he was like, if they were any smaller, you'd tip over. Whenever I think of my feet being too big, I still hear that response from my dad. Like, if they're any smaller, you tip over. They're just right. So that you can live your life.
Man, like things we learn from like our parents sometimes,
Yeah.
man. That's just amazing, like that knowledge. All right, so let's talk a little bit. First of all, how you feeling? Like so far as we were
I feel
talking.
good. I feel much more open than when, we were first walking over here.
Absolutely, cool. Let's talk about reflexology, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Okay.
Great.
So reflexology is all about the different pressure points you have in your hands and in your feet, right? Those pressure points actually connect to different parts of your body. So, like for example, through massage, through acupuncture, through acupressure, you can alleviate stress and tension to various parts of your body.
Oh, totally. And your feet like talk to so many different organs.
Like your liver,
it's
your
so amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's so when I first learned about it, right? Like I said, I'm a kinesiology major, and just learning about different muscle groups and how they work together to like do work. But then learning about reflexology and being like, wait a minute, I can like apply pressure to this section right here and then alleviate something somewhere else.
It's so
right?
cool.
And I was like, that's like the coolest thing that I ever heard about. Like it was like something that to me, like I feel like everybody should know, because I think a lot of times we feel like when we're feeling a pain or something, like, oh, let me take a pill for that, or let me
totally.
It's like,
or it's just where I feel the pain is where the problem is.
Yeah, and it could be somewhere totally different.
So can I pause you?
Sure.
So when I went through my yoga teacher training, we had someone who was a kinesiologist and sports, like massage therapist, come in and teach us all about like in-depth anatomy work. And her catchphrase is, "Where you think it is, it ain't."
That's a good point.
And it's just so fucking true, especially with like fascia tissue and all of these other things.
Oh my God.
Like it's incredible. Our bodies are so complex and we've lost so much of our literacy. So I'm really happy that you're learning so much about it. I'm also like on this journey of learning so much about it too.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So usually when I go, I give this information. I'm always trying to like make sure that I give it to people so that they can learn more about it from a more holistic standpoint. Like things that can help you out naturally.
So you're not just popping pills when you feel pain.
So because for me personally, right, like if I get sick, I don't take anything. Like I'm all about natural. I'm doing fruits, I'm doing veggies, like I'm doing everything naturally, and I feel like my body reacts better to that as opposed to like, oh, I'm gonna take this, teaspoon of Robitussin or whatever like that, and I don't know what's in there. Like it's got all these chemicals. I have no idea what it's gonna do to me long term. But that's been the way I've done things since I was younger. So yeah. Absolutely. So with that being said, we usually talk about sensitivity. How ticklish do you tend to be?
If I'm caught by surprise, very ticklish, or if I feel like I can't move, very ticklish, because my body's in this like state where I'm like,
When you get pedicures,
clenching.
are you ticklish? Like at all?
Sometimes, but I know how to breathe my way through it and just be like, I know how to like intentionally relax my body in certain situations or areas now, and that's like a learned skill.
There is
still
a
not an
trick to
expert.
it too, though.
Oh yeah?
There's
What is
a
it?
trick to it. Wiggling your toes.
It helps.
Here's why. Do you
But
know
you
why?
can't wiggle your toes when you're getting a pedicure.
Sure you can.
Can you?
When they're doing the pumice stone, because that's usually the most ticklish part for most women,
yeah.
right? So give your toes a little bit of a wiggle, because what happens there, right? Well, first of all, can you think about why that would be something that would alleviate it?
I like how you turn it back to me.
Yeah.
I think it's because by giving some sort of motion, you're alleviating the tension and like holding and gripping.
So yeah,
quality.
it's the energy. So right. So like when you move and you do this, even if I'm like focusing in one area, that energy moves around now because now you're in movement, right? So that's like kind of one of the first things you learn in kinesiology, like about how things like move, energy. So like yeah, definitely something right there. Like if you go get your pedicures, you're ticklish, just give your toes a little bit of a wiggle and they'll start to move that energy around. You won't feel it as much.
Cool.
Absolutely.
I need that tip.
And it's also because like you're thinking about doing something mentally, like your mind is like distracting itself
Totally.
from it.
Just
So.
like the breathing thing.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So let me get you to do a couple exercises with your feet. This is to test dexterity and flexibility in your feet.
Ooh, okay.
So let me get you to just put your feet out straight like this. All right. So here's what I want you to do first. Okay. Let me get you bend your toes, make a fist. Tell me if you feel pain, discomfort while
Like
you're doing
this?
that. Yeah. Is that easy to do or hard to do?
Somewhere
Any
in the
pain?
middle.
Any pain?
Pressure, not pain.
Pressure, not pain. Okay.
Yeah.
Relax. All right. Let me get you spread your toes. Tell me if you feel pain, discomfort. Now I know you said you have the injury here.
Can you see which toes it is?
It looks like it's these first two right here.
It's these two right here.
Oh, it's those two.
Yeah,
Interesting.
like I have to like.
Interesting. Okay, well, don't strain. We don't want you to strain. And then lastly, let me get you relaxed first. Okay, let me get you just wiggle your toes for about 10 seconds. Tell me if you feel pain, discomfort, cramping, anything happening there. Does it feel relatively easy to do?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, I can tell that I'm like not where I used to be because I used to have to be like very into my feet dexterity.
So I have a trick for you too that can help you with like create more flexibility there, like in the morning. So a little trick you can do. take a tennis ball or a golf ball, right? And just take your foot and just roll it across it.
Fascia.
It will definitely like loosen up all those like muscles, those tendons that you have down here that you don't normally use. Just practice some of those movements. Definitely helpful.
Thank
all right,
you.
cool. Let's wrap up the interview.
Okay.
In terms of my approach, coming up to you, asking you to do the interview, was my approach good? Was it bad? What did you think about it?
I think it was fine once I made eye contact with you. I think that as a woman in the world, an unfamiliar person, but especially unfamiliar man approaching you is initially always shocking and intimidating and feels dangerous.
Yeah.
But once I made eye contact with you, I could like pick up on your energy, and I felt like you were not a threat. And then the way that you know, hey, I have an interview, this is what I'm talking about. I just happened to also not have anything right away to do.
Definitely appreciate it.
So I think that my one comment, and you might have done this, I actually have really shit hearing.
Yeah.
When you are in someone's field of vision is like the best time to approach them as a stranger, as opposed to like if you're over my shoulder or like somewhere where I can't like see you. That's like really alarming.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that. I think you were probably talking to me while I was going to my car.
Yeah, I was like right in front of you, and I said, hey, excuse me, miss. And then when I said it, I think you didn't hear me, and you just like kept walking. So then,
also, like there are times where I just have to try and learn to ignore people because like I get approached a lot by people who don't have specific or good intentions to getting my attention. So I try not to give them my attention.
No, that's very smart. Absolutely, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
In terms of the interview, right, start to finish, did you see how everything was going in a line? Did it make sense? Did you learn anything new from the information I provided?
I definitely learned some new information. I liked the flow of it because I knew that we were somehow talking about feet, but I think it's important the ways that you staged each topic, and you're giving me an opportunity to check in with myself. Like, hey, how do I feel about these things?
Yeah.
What is coming to mind for me? And that's a learning experience, you know, for me if I'm paying attention to myself.
Absolutely. And that's the way I wanted it to be. Just because a lot of times when you're first of all talking to somebody who you don't know, you can feel uncomfortable. So allowing it to be like a discussion where we're just talking and we're just going through it, and then seeing like, I know I'm gonna throw something at you, it's gonna be unexpected, but like, how do you react in that moment? And I get different reactions, so it's always good.
Yeah, good.
So the last thing I always ask, from a mental health standpoint, a life lesson maybe you learned, wise words somebody shared with you that you could share on my channel that could be helpful. It could be anything. Don't overthink it. Just whatever comes to mind.
Don't miss the moment. Don't miss the magic of the moment is something that Dharma, who teaches yoga on the bluff, says a lot lately. That's been something I've been holding on to, where we're so fixated on like the outcome or like end point of our goals. So like we're focused more on the creation, or we give more value and energy to the creation than we do to the process of creating. And like the like in process space is where the magic happens. So like don't miss the magic of the moment. Like if you're dragging yourself to yoga and the whole time you're thinking like, I'm so tight, I don't do enough yoga, I'm not strong, I'm not flexible, I can't do what these people are doing, you're missing the magic of being in the moment, which is showing up and doing yoga. Even if your body is tight and you could do more yoga, if you reprogram your brain to saying, wow, I'm doing yoga, I'm alleviating tightness. Like that is the magic of the moment. It's giving yourself the gift of a present moment. And so often we bypass that because we're already in our head, right? And we're often having a negative bias on our experience. So don't miss the magic of the moment, or don't miss the moment. That could mean that. It also could mean like, my friend yesterday is a musician locally, and someone invited her to sit in on a performance. Really tired. She's had like a really crazy couple of weeks. She's like, I really don't want to go. Like, I don't feel good. I feel like I'm not going to perform well. I'm tired. I just want to relax. And I'm trying to find balance. And I was like, I totally hear you, and only you know this right answer. But do you think you're going to remember the fact that you pushed through, and you're going to remember that you were there and you sat in with this cool musician, or are you going to remember the nap that you took? And like, again,
nap you ain't remember.
Right, and like only you can answer that. Sometimes you do need to say no, and there's a lot of power in that. But I think that was her almost missing the moment there, and she pushed through and she made it, and she had a great time.
That's lovely, man. I love that, man. That's so good. Thank you so much. I definitely appreciate you stopping like to do this whole interview with us and everything. All right, and we hope that you have a great one. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.